Hey everyone, Proteus here, and this is my semi-retirement Q&A. Let's get started. Thomas and Lionel Fanmaking Productions asks, those last two outtake scenes looked and reminded me of Captain Punjab's series intro. Were they some inspirations for you, or you liked those shots and wanted to remake them? Demolition Birdie was kind of inspired by Captain Punjab's series. It's kind of funny how it still holds up, even though the video quality is terrible. The sets are so bland, and but I think what makes it so good is you could tell every second of watching it that Captain Punjab was having a lot of fun making it. So yeah, I plan to have Demolition Birdie open in a similar way. Also, would you like to be the voice for a character in anyone's or my videos, or not really at the moment? You can try your luck asking me to voice a character. I either will or won't, depending on what I'm doing at the time. Right now I'm kind of busy. Christopher Bouchard asks, really nice to see you again. How have you been? I've had my ups and my downs. I'm not in any trouble, but I've had mood swings. I'm not going to go into detail. Semi-retirement? Might as well get some semi-sad memes to mark the occasion. None spring to mind. Regardless of what happens, I'm really looking forward to whatever the future holds for your content. I think you'll probably be looking at some more short videos like those drip tank edits and that last one I did, that Mr. Blakeworth thing. I think maybe I'll do some George Carlin things. I don't remember who it was who made those, but he'd put some bits of his audiobooks into Thomas episodes, US dubs narrated by him. And there's some QI thing I want to do, because sometimes they mention Thomas the Tank Engine. Not very often, but sometimes. And I do want to finish Demolition Birdie, but it'll take me a long time. The Purple Beanie, who I think was formerly Lightninging 63, glad to see you're still kicking. Another food question. If you were to sit down after a long, frustrating day to munch on a pint of any flavor ice cream, what flavor would it be? My favorite flavor is butterscotch, but I don't think I'd chow down on ice cream at the end of a frustrating day. I prefer to down a Coke or go to McDonald's, get some Chicken McNuggets. Chicken McNuggets make me smile for reasons I'd rather not go into. Jamie Geraldo, I don't know if that's a soft G or a hard G, has a few questions. What are your goals for this year? Finish a comic, which is pony and railway related. Just gonna write down so I remember to put a link in the description if you're interested. As far as this fandom goes, I do want to carry on filming for Demolition Birdie, and I want to write more TUGS fanfiction. If you don't know, I've got 5 stories on DeviantArt. I've got 5 beat sheets for stories that I can write. To wet your lips, the stories I plan to put up next are called Cruise, Sirens, Water Wheel, Sub Chaser, and Brickworks, and I'm bouncing around a few ideas for 3 more after that. I've done a little acquired reading, and I gotta say, I'm not quite so shocked that there were 96 scripts for more TUGS episodes after the first 13. My version's highlighted, by the way, with various things I wanted to remember so I could use some information for my stories. Will you get Bachman Oliver? Yeah, his model may look a bit screwy, but it still looks like a 1400 tank. The colors are good. I'm glad they went with a classic model face instead of a copy of the CGI looking thing. Thoughts on Season 20? Season 20 broke me. I'm finished. I've just about fallen completely out of love with new Thomas material, like from Mattel and Hit and fan made. Like, I have enjoyed some recent fan creations, like those 2 episodes of History of the Other Railway and that Tommy T and F crossover, and that recent Riff Trains Christmas special. But before that, the last new Thomas fan-made thing I really remember enjoying was Shed 17. And I really don't remember the last thing I really enjoyed from the show. It might have been Thomas and the Emergency Cable. Oh, season 20, what we have now is the illusion of improvement, and it's blindsided so many people, and so many people are overhyping it, praising it, giving it way too much praise. So I might have discussed this in my previous one, my last Q&A, my 1,000 subscriber special, and it's still amazing me that I got 1,000. So the reason I was able to keep coming back to the show during the dark ages was because they knew they were being lazy and thoughtless, and everyone was heaping complaints, grievances, and scolding the writers and executives, letting them know they must get their act together. Writing and producing a show aimed at children is no excuse for laziness and insulting writing. So they knew they needed to improve. Now, Brenner's Lot, well, I think maybe they're okay. Brenner's Lot is fine. Instead of talentless hacks, now we have people who do care. But they're still under the stranglehold of greedy, stupid executives who insist on ridiculous moments that completely take you out of what you're seeing. Thomas running over the branch in Adventure Begins is one standout example. Why and how did that happen? There are others, but I don't want to fucking... The things I remember enjoying from season 20 are Henry in the Dark was kind of refreshing. The idea of glow-in-the-dark paint, it's normally used for signs, being used on Henry is funny. And it's kind of refreshing that Henry wasn't being portrayed as a weed, and everyone was thinking he was, and so he kind of has an opportunity to get his own back. That was interesting. And Bradford is easily the best character Hit Entertainment made up for him, with Luke being a close second. Right, like, the show needs Bradford. He can keep everyone in check. Andy's persona is based on the Sergeant Major from It Ain't Half Hot Mom, so excellent. He's the best character I've seen come out of the show in a long time. And I haven't seen any merchandise of the fucking guy. Like, easily the best character, the most marketable character, and they won't make a toy of him, you unbelievable bastards. And the absolute worst thing, Thomas will not get the fuck off the screen! The cast is too big, and the setting is too vast to justify Thomas being in every single fucking episode! But they don't think they need to improve now, because everyone's latching onto these short comedic moments, and of course those 3 Railway series adaptations, which at best are a charming gesture. Now they're not going to improve. Now the executives think they can just inject these ridiculous things. They can just force these stupid decisions on the writers who actually are trying to do Thomas justice. The fandom is definitely falling into the same trap as last time. When there's a bit of pandering, everyone hypes it up too much, everyone sings its praises. And I see people complaining about episodes like Duncan and the Grumpy Passenger, and saying that they're ungrateful. For God's sakes, a returning character from the old days won't fix anything. Characters like Duck and Oliver and Duncan coming back, they're listening to us. Well, us wanted them back for superficial reasons. And all these things that take us out of that just derail the stories and specials. So whenever I see Thomas show up in an episode, 9 times out of 10 I'll just stop watching it. I'm done. And towards the end of season 20, I was thinking, I am just setting myself up for disappointment. The final straw came with Skiff and the Mermaid. It was good. Oh, I was so distraught at the end when Thomas reared his ugly head. You can just replace the word mermaid in that episode with slut. The slut does appear at the end of the episode. So this is a big factor as to why I'm partially retiring. I've just fallen out of love with new Thomas material. I just know that any new thing, especially, like, mainly from Hit and Mattel, I'm just setting myself up for disappointment. If you don't think I'm just a whiny armchair, then you can let me know if they clean up their act, and I'll give it a shot, but I think I'm done. But no matter how ridiculous the new stuff is, it can't erase the good times. So I still... Hello? Hey. Not bad, recording a Q&A right now. I can wait. Okay. Bye. Favorite characters? New Bradford and Luke. The merchandise doesn't really do Luke justice. And they won't make Bradford. Bachman. If you make Bradford, I will orgasm. And classic, the big engines, Henry, Gordon, and James. Favorite Railway Series books? Henry the Green Engine, 8 Famous Engines, Very Old Engines, Mainline Engines, Oliver the Western Engine, Duke the Lost Engine, Gordon the High Speed Engine, and Wilbert the Forest Engine. Thomas Blue asks, he says, I was actually watching some of your older videos earlier today. Ironic, you would upload something new later on. I wouldn't call it ironic, more coincidental. As for questions, favorite Thomas model? On the show? I don't know. Some of the ones from season 7 were good. Spencer, Murdoch, Fergus looked pretty good. You know, I think all the Emily and Arthur looked good too. I guess all the new characters from season 7 looked good. For merchandise, I guess maybe by Bachman, for Bachman. Emily and Edward are good. So is Duck, Donald and Douglas are good. Diesel, Larry, and Bert are good. And by the way, I'm not going to bother with Paxton. Most annoying trouble you have while filming? Basically everything you see. Just occasionally that gets stuck on the track, or something will come off the rails, or the trees will wobble, or I'll stub my toe on the table and the whole set will shake. Just, this is the sort of thing that happens all the time with models, even when you're not filming. Thanks, nice to see you still around. I hope you don't completely retire. I don't think I can completely retire. I am still very much connected to the show. The show, Thomas the Tank Engine, is basically my core. So yeah, I'm just not going to be around much. Sam the Thomas fan too asks, what's the best Bachman and or Hornby model you've gotten, and where'd you get it? Thomas stuff, they're all equally reliable. And as for looks, I think I've just said which ones look the best. And other things, I recently got a Southern Q1 for Christmas. I like those. And I had little sticker thingies for place names, so I named her Ashford, because I did a little digging around the internet, and number C21 was built at Ashford Works. And I recently modified a hull. I know what you're thinking. I sort of made up what I call BR's take on the Western 460. I was thinking how Witherslack Hull was trialed on the Great Central, and while she did okay, the Great Central was kind of the only network suitable for a hull to run on. Anywhere else, their cylinders are too fat. And BR did build a number of Great Western 460 based on existing designs. So I thought, what if they had the cylinders on the inside? This is what it looks like so far. And what I plan to do is take the sort of cylinder block on the front running plate from an old broken Castle model of mine, stick it on somehow. Modeling's not my thing. I don't tamper with my models much. I figured I'd call the class the Chapels, with names like Bethesda Chapel, Biddlestone Chapel, Coat Chapel, Salem Chapel, British chapels, basically. A class of Western 460 designed for multi-regional use, but only 10 of them were made because the BR standard range wanted a simpler design with like outside valve gear and running plates above the driving wheels and stuff. Thoughts on Bachman, Oliver, and Rosie? Oliver, good. Rosie, I am really disappointed because she was delayed and people were wondering why, and then we saw that promotional material for that new special and she's red And I thought, yes, she looks legitimate. And the Bachmann prototype is fucking pink. I'm gonna wait, see if they get their act together. Because I can't take Rosie seriously in a pink color scheme. Out of all the railways in the world, which is your favorite? If we're going by railways I've been to, then I'd have to say the Festiniog. And that's pretty much because, well, on the ride up I had a headache, but the scenery pretty much woke me up. It was great. And I remember I was, I mentioned to my mom that I was interested in seeing Lyd, because to me she seems the most distinctive engine on the line, because they mostly have George Englands and double Fairleys and Garretts, which I like, but I like variety in narrow gauge engines particularly. And my mom mentioned to a volunteer that I was interested in seeing Lyd, and the volunteer went to the general manager. So we were invited on a footplate ride on Fiji, the Haswell-Clark engine. And they invited us to Boston Lodge, and there was Lyd. I've been sitting on these since then. Taliclin was in Boston Lodge having her seized valve gear seen to. This was in 2014. So, yeah. I was in there for a few minutes having a look at her. And railways I would like to see, I would like to visit, the Great Central, the South Devon, the North Norfolk, the West Somerset, Keighley and Worth Valley. I guess those are the top 5. Andrew Liego, I don't know. Welcome back, old friend. Here are my questions. What got you started making your own Thomas series? I wouldn't call it a series, really. It's more like just a collection of various things, audio projects, short videos, riffs, parody adaptations. Just whenever I see something, I think, oh, that looked like they had fun making that. Maybe I'll make something similar, and it was fun for a time. But some of my recent things I haven't enjoyed making Thomas-wise, like that "Who's Jeffrey" riff at the end of my last Q&A. I didn't really enjoy making, but hopefully you won't tell. Hopefully you couldn't really tell. I think it came out okay regardless. What was your first Thomas episode and series? I don't really remember specifically. I've been watching Thomas the Tank Engine since I could breathe. I'm told the first VHS I watched was Tenders and Turntables, so I guess my first encounter with it was the Troublesome Engines trilogy. Series 1, I guess. I was born around the time Season 3 was coming, but I was born in 91. And I love Season 3 a lot. Guy and Rotor, hello, here are my questions. Do you think Seasons 13 to 16 of Thomas the Tank Engine can be bypassed? I think Seasons 8 to 20 can be bypassed. Even 6 and 7 are a little bit screwy. Like, they kind of got the idea, those new writers, but there were a lot of screwy things, like why were the sports day medals in the Fat Controller's office? But there was a lot of potential with some of the new characters. Like, there's only one little detail in Gordon and Spencer that could make the episode work really well. Like, it's weird that Spencer just seemed to think he didn't need to take on water. But they could mention that he probably thought there were water troughs on Sodor. Heavy express engines like the A4s would pick up water from troughs with scoops in their tenders. So Spencer, they could have said Spencer thought maybe there were some, but Sodor isn't a very long stretch of land, so they don't really need water troughs. So that's why Spencer ends up running out. And there's a thing I think they could have done with Murdoch's introduction, rather than just having him be the giant of an engine who likes some peace and quiet. That's just kind of weak to me. I saw this video of Donald Beale on the West Somerset, or was it the East Somerset? It was either the East or West Somerset Railway. I don't remember. But he was talking about a 9F. That someone was driving, and it freaked him out how strong and fast she was, and that she was taking coaches up a hill, and he was looking back thinking, did some coaches break away? I imagine I have this sort of reimagining of Murdoch's introduction. He first arrives on Soder and he wasn't expecting Gordon's Hill and he finds it difficult to get up it. And then the next day, so he's nervous about taking heavy goods trains along the main line. And then in the morning he finds he has to take Gordon's Express for him. And so he and his crew make a good run for the hill and they go up it really easily and over it, but Murdoch freaks out because he thinks he lost some of his coaches. That could have been funny. And I'm not as naffed off about his yellow paintwork as I am with Rosie's pink paintwork, but there were some Quaker green and Stroudley green engines, which those are just actually yellow. I believe William Stroudley was colorblind, so engines like Stepney and others, London Brighton South Coast engines were actually yellow. And the Midland and Great Northern Joint Railway was a sort of autumn leaf livery, which looks handsome on a lot of engines, although I haven't seen it on many. I wonder why they've never applied it to their B12, because B12s did work on that line, and they have a B12 preserved, and they are the Midland and Great Northern Joint Railway Society. It seems like a no-brainer. And they have a WD210O, so I guess it's not completely far-fetched that Murdoch has that color scheme. But I think if they were to go with what I just said, they could have made him Prussian blue. That'd be cool. I'm thinking of giving story ideas like this for other content creators because, like I said, I think I said before, one of my favorite things about making content is conceptualizing stories. I'm thinking I might offer ideas for other people. Something I didn't mention about new Thomas content in the fandom is that a lot of it tends to go for these creator collective kind of things, which are, as a scope, they're good. The scope of it is good, but it's hard to get immersed when every 40 seconds the format changes, like it's different models, different merchandise. It's hard to get sucked in for me. It is impressive, but a production value change every few seconds. It's hard to get immersed. What are your thoughts on the foreign engines in the great butt fucking race? They're waste. They're a waste. They're all a goddamn waste. The great race is to Brenner's specials what Misty Island Rescue is to Miller's specials. How funny is it that Thomas jumping over the bridge wasn't the worst part? What is it with Brenner and Gordon's boiler? How did he not die? That's such bullshit. Like, they make this big fuss if Gordon doesn't get his safety valve in, his boiler's gonna blow up. And then it just happens, and the worst thing that happens is he loses the race. The worst thing that happens when the steam engine's boiler blows up is how stupid are Paxton, Den, and Dart? Oh God! And Diesel's the generic douche. Why did Vinny have to be a generic douche? We've already got one. And really, the biggest crime is it renders the Adventure Begins awful. I said this before, and I'll say it again. We got screwed. We thought when we were encouraging people to buy the Adventure Begins on DVD, we thought we were letting them know this is the kind of thing we want to see. But what we ended up financing was the modelers making all those goddamn toys. We got anally fucked. Tank Engine 97. I'm guessing footage shown in the videos from Demolition Birdie. Yep, I refuse to quit on that. That's going to be my final big project for the Thomas the Tank Engine fandom. Because I'd been sitting on that one for a while, as it was, before I announced it and held auditions and started filming. And, you know, the cast got their lines in so quickly, including me. I recorded around the February after I announced the cast. That was a big help. But like I said, I'm losing my passion for new Thomas material. But I know that if I decide to scrap it, I delete everything I've got, I know I'll regret it later on. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to rule anything out. I'm going to keep working on it bit by bit. Shan Shai has 5 questions. What's your favorite season? It's a toss-up between 3, 4, and 5. In the 90s, the show was excellent. The models looked spectacular, the sets were beautiful, the music was excellent, and as much as I like Ringo's narration, I think he does drama well. I love Angelus Carlin, and Baldwin did good. He did good in season 5. He may have lost interest in season 6, and he may have been a goofball in Magic Railroad, which I can understand. I knew about Shining Time Station before I saw Magic Railroad, and I knew of the previous incarnations of Mr. Conductor in the form of Star and Carlin, so it didn't surprise me at all that Baldwin was acting like this. I never even heard of Baldwin before Thomas. I never even heard of Fonda before then. Fucking Nostalgia Critic made such a big fuss about Fonda and Baldwin being in those films. I never heard of either of those fuckers until Thomas. If you're wondering, I did get suckered by Magic Railroad, because up until that time the franchise had never steered me wrong. But I did have some problems with it then. My biggest was the models weren't polished. Like, they went from looking beautiful in seasons 3, 4, and 5 to plasticky and toy-like in Magic Railroad. That bugged me at the time. It still does. It's ridiculous. Best episode? It's tough. It is so tough. I think maybe Ghost Train. I love the atmosphere in that episode. Worst character? That's even tougher. There's so many characters with no substance and no reason to exist. Billy, Silly Billy, Timothy, Reg, Hank and Flora were no bleh. Least favorite season, like everyone else, season 15 was the deepest, darkest cesspit Thomas had ever splashed into. Worst episode? Oh, I don't know. Fiery Flynn, Wonky Whistle, Percy and the Calliope. The original theme at the end was a nice touch at best, but Percy was just brainless in that episode. Douglas fan 1221, Jesus Christ on a Cracker. Right. TARDIS 9, 2 questions. Out of all the specials, which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? Why? Well, I actually like Blue Mountain Mystery, mainly because it features the narrow gauge engines, and the Blue Mountain Quarry is an interesting place, and Luke is a good character. My least favorite, Misty Island Rescue, closely followed by The Great Race. Going by the footage in this video, are you planning to make an original story using your models? Yep, that's Demolition Birdie. Jivio, aka Rusty Red Scrap Iron. A couple questions. Have you seen Rogue One, a Star Wars story? If yes, how would you compare it to The Force Awakens? Better, worse, average, or about the same? I haven't seen Rogue One. I've seen Force Awakens, and I think I'm done with new Star Wars stuff too. You can just tell George Carlin. You can just tell George Lucas wasn't involved. It just because episodes 1 through 6, they have George Lucas's stamp. Really, you can tell they're products of his imagination. I understand people's problems with 1 through 3, but there was a lot of imagination and creativity in those ones. That's good enough for me. Is there any particular film, TV franchise, etc. that everyone loves, but you just couldn't get into it or can't stand it? And likewise, I don't understand people's like for shows like My 600-Pound Life or Border Security. Every episode's the same. Some dumbass tries to smuggle something over the border and gets caught for a stupid reason. Like he was just careless. You've seen one, you've seen the lot. Same thing with Under 600-Pound Life. I actually walked in on my dad watching that, and the door was kind of next to the TV, so he was yelling at the fat ass on the TV. He goes, "You're a fat bitch and no one loves you," and as I'm coming through the door, he goes, "Hi," and I'm like, "Sorry." And for the other way around, I love Cars and Cars 2, and Nostalgia Critic says, everyone says Cars 2 sucks. Well, now everyone does, because you fucking said it, you asshole. I mean, I like Nostalgia Critic, but his reviews on Cars and Cars 2 annoyed me. It seems like he just veered way away from the point and missed it entirely. Like, how the hell is the idea of a world of talking cars so weird? And he completely missed the point of Cars 2. The point was not the environmental message. It was the North by Northwest man who knew too much kind of thing. Which does make sense. Mater is a good character to portray that kind of thing. Are there, or were there, any ideas you had for TNF shorts involving the Fat Controller and Wiggles? Also, which other season aside from Christmas would you have as a setting for those dual? Not really, no. Nah, I haven't done one of those in a long time, and I have absolutely no ideas for more of those. You can probably kiss those goodbye. But if I come up with something, I'll give it a shot. Mitten Apart asks, thoughts on Journey Beyond Sodor? No. I'm not going to bother. I know I'm just setting myself up for disappointment with new official Thomas stuff. No, I'm done. Daniel Buth, I don't know. What's the funniest thing that happened on set? One time my brother was trying to sneak up on me, but he had the hiccups. He was trying to sneak up on me and scare me, but I hear, I turn around, he goes, "This is stupid." I wasn't filming anything at the time, but it's just one of those things I wish someone had been filming. Projects in the future? Like I said, I might offer story ideas like that one I just did for a sort of reimagining of Murdoch's introduction, and maybe an adaptation of Gordon and Spencer where we met the water troughs, or the water trough element is injected in there. I have some other ones, like one involving Gordon and a visiting rail tour engine and some repairs to his wheels, which was inspired by this book. I've got some bookmarks in it. It was inspired by the story about the invention of the corridor tender, which it's probably one of my favorite stories about British railway stuff. It's funny. And there's another one involving Donald taking a passenger train. So I think maybe something I'll do in future is offer story ideas. I think I'll call it fanfic fodder. And people can do whatever they like with it. Tell me what you think. Zephyrin68 asks, how do you make all your edits? This means changing faces, adding bits and pieces onto original scenes, making the humans move, giving Fat Hat his peanuts and walkers. I'm guessing you're talking about Sad Story of Ever Gordon and Henry and Bowler Bewitched in particular. It's a combination of Photoshop and Sony Vegas. Soundwave3591 asks, how long did it take to do some of your video edits, your drip tank footage? Those drip tank short scenes took me an afternoon. Although I did take that picture of that little plastic tree the previous day. So I guess over the course of 2 days. Sparkshot, aka Knuckles. Blimey, I thought my filming nightmares were bad. I do remember that video of you having trouble moving Henry and you smacked yourself. And that's why he's called Knuckles. Trainman3985. For a second I thought it was the same guy, but no, it's different. What was the backstory idea for Station Master Wiggles? That was actually Alaric's thing in his Troublesome Engines Trilogy redub series. That was kind of my voice acting debut in the Thomas fandom as Wiggles, the Station Master. I actually auditioned for playing the foreman in Chris's Adventures of Fergus redub before, but Alaric's thing came out before that. Stephen Mahoney, do you watch Steam Locos in profile? Religiously. I'm pretty sure he's gonna make it to his 3,000 pound goal by the end of the month. I've never read up anything or looked up anything on German engines. If anyone can make them interesting, it's him. And if you're curious what I'd like to see in Steam Locals in profile or Soul Slips, I dare say the Drummond M7s wouldn't be too difficult. There's two. There's one on static display and one running. And if he thinks that's going to get tiresome, his Board Nimona thing went pretty well. Won't say too much. Just in case you haven't bought the DVDs, it's worth getting them just for the bonus material. The austerity tanks I'd like to see as well. The story is they don't do demonstration goods runs often. I'd like to see the large prairies, and he said he doesn't want to do the taffy tanks. I like the standard 460s as well. That's about it. And for Soul Survivors, I'd like to see I forgot what the class is called, 1366. It's like that one pannier with outside cylinders and valve gear on the South Devon. And I mentioned their LNER B12 owned by the Midland and Great Northern Joint Railway Society. I'd like to see one on that. I like this Monsell Q's as well, and that there's that Great Western saddle tank as well. I forget what class that is. I want to say 1366 as well. It's like that 060 saddle tank engine. Sci-Fi Guy 9000 asks, what do you think of Rex, Mite, and Burke finally being on the TV series? It's like I said, it's a charming gesture at best. There's a lot about those 3 episodes that bugged the hell out of me. I remember when I first started watching Tit for Tat, and that bit with James saying cheese, that made me laugh, but a split second later, a horrible thought occurred to me. Are they going to use this going around the island taking pictures of engines as an excuse to shoehorn Thomas into this episode? And it happened instantly. And the rest of them the same way. Thomas can't stay the goddamn hell off the screen. And besides that, the drivers don't seem to do anything. Like the whole point of Bert slowing down, dawdling, is so that the driver would open the regulator, which would give him the boost of power he'd need to blow a lot of exhaust into the trees and make the water drop. And Mike is hugely miscast. Tim Whitnall doesn't do him justice at all. Mike's supposed to have a flaming temper, and what Whitnall gives us is a hissy fit. And I really despise Rex's stupid slow motion crash. It's just padding, and it's obvious, and it's pathetic. My favorite Railway series character? Wilbert, I guess. You know what I think would have been nice if, say, in season 5 they carried on adapting Railway series material. I think it would have been sweet if they'd started the season by adapting Wilbert the Forest Engine. I know it's not exactly right that they tried to make the Bluebell seem like part of the railway, but I think I could have I think I could forgive it if they say the Bluebell was working on an extension into a forest they called the Dean Forest, and they brought in Wilbert to do the goods work, and he visited Thomas's branch line and Duck's branch line. I'm not sure how video releases or DVD releases went in the UK, but in the US, before the songs came about, we had 7 episodes, and then when the songs came out, we had 6 and a song. I think it'd be cool if we had those 4 stories, and it started with Stepney gets lost, but the reason he leaves the Bluebell to help Toby and Mavis in the first place is because he, the Fat Controller, thinks perhaps he'd like a change from working on the extension into the Dean Forest. And he ends up finding Wilbert in the scrapyard. I think the second story would be like an adaptation of that annual story, A Problem for the Twins, where Donald and Douglas have a hard time passing each other with their long goods trains on the loop line, showing that even though they're both very capable and clever engines, they are a bit overworked. Bork Laser, will you continue with your abridged work, like the Xmas special? I wouldn't call it abridged. Oh, you mean that Santa Bridged thing? No, that's a one-off. It's a product of years and years and years of joking around with my family and friends. There's something I'd like to retcon, and I'd like to retcon the scene where Chris first enters Sombertown, and that was kind of a weak joke. I'd like to do something with the Green Giant, Jolly Green Giant. Fish Pop, Brony stuff. Oh dear. Yeah, working on reviews and comics and fanfics and opinion pieces, and the My Little Pony Friendship is Magic fandom isn't the only reason I've slowed down with Thomas stuff, but it is a big one. Stephen Mahoney, who asked that Steam Locos and Profile question, also asks, do you watch The Railways of Sodor by Sparkshot? I haven't in a while, but I did see all the episodes, from Slippery Rails to, what was it, Gordon and Henry, what was that what it was called? That one was really cool. Like I said before, modeling's not my thing. It's definitely Nuck's thing. Steam-powered Cyborg, would you still contribute to any Thomas fan projects in spite of most of your time being focused on your Brony channel? Like I said before, you could, if you want me to do a voice, send me a message. If I'm available, I can do it. Now's not a good time though. Can I just say I love your toffees and timetables redub, better than the original episode. Thanks, that was actually a product of yours as well. I lost the footage in the video, the edit file, so I had to do it all again. That was pretty maddening. But it turned out okay. Does that count as a question? Sure. Have you ever seen Gravity Falls? It's been on my backlog for years, since 2012. I haven't even taken the wrapper off this. Someday I'll give it a shot. I'll find time to watch it. Because I have a feeling I would like it. I've heard nothing but good things about it. Seems interesting, the characters, I've heard a lot about the characters. And I hear the stories are very imaginative and creative. I'll give it a shot someday. Finally, the Blue E2 asks, are certain clips in this announcement video homages to Captain Punjab? Because they sure as hell look like it. Yeah. That was the last time I talked to him. I was hoping he'd be okay if I homaged some of his work. And that's everything. Thanks for your questions. Sorry if I've been a bit of a downer. I guess I've covered the main reasons why my content has slowed down, and there won't be a lot in the future. The biggest thing I'm working on is Demolition Birdie, and as far as constant content goes, I'm thinking of offering story ideas for people to adapt however they like. So, good night everyone, I'm Proteus, thanks for watching.